Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio. I'm James Spencer. In the studio with me is Steve Wilkes.
Hi, James. It's good to be back on Basic Brewing Radio.
And Andy Sparks.
Hey, it's great to be here, James.
And in our Washington, D.C. office is Michael Tonsmeire, the Mad Fermentationist.
Always glad to be here, James.
Do you mind that I call your apartment our Washington, D.C. office?
What is this, my fourth appearance? I think Washington, D.C. Regional office is appropriate.
Our bureau.
Bureau.
Our capital city bureau. How about that?
Works for me.
The format is a little different this week because I will, by the time you hear this, I will have returned, hopefully, safely from South by Southwest in Austin. And so I wanted to get this show on in a timely manner, but, I don't have a lot of time to edit. So what we're doing this week is we're continuing Mike's Belgian sugar experiment. And maybe you can bring us up to speed, Mike, on where we are and what we're in for tonight.
Sure, James. Some listeners may remember, I think it was about a year and a half ago, I was on with the first round. This is a follow-up, essentially the same format. I brewed a 5-gallon batch. Pretty similar recipe. This time I used 7 pounds of Pilsner, 2.25 pounds of Belgian pale malt, a quarter pound of Melanoidin, and a quarter pound of Vienna. That's basically the same grain bill with a couple of minor switches from last time. The hops were 1.5 ounces of Hallertauer at 75 and 1/2 ounce at 12 minutes. I fermented with 3787, which is the Westmalle strain. I used the White Labs version of that 530 last time. I used DC wire this time. When I brewed the first one, I was still living up in Massachusetts, so the wire was different. The same mash schedule, 15 minutes at 135, followed by the saccharification rest, 45 minutes at 145, and then up to 163 to finish off the saccharification and leave a little bit of bodybuilding dextrin. The real big difference between this one and the last one I split the batch after the boil, add the sugars, and then fermented each in a gallon jug separately. That created some problems. The white sugar got a hotter fermentation. It just introduced too many variables. So this time I fermented them all together through primary and then split going into the secondary. I boiled 3.5 ounces of each sugar in 3.5 ounces of water to sanitize it, and then rack the beer on top of that.
Just to clarify, you said it was the 3787 Trappist yeast. You didn't say it was the Y yeast, so just to make sure that people are clear.
That's right. Y yeast Trappist high gravity. Now,
did you overall did you see much difference in the results from the first method of splitting the batches before fermentation, and then this method of going through primary and then splitting the batches and adding the sugar to the secondary? Did you see some differences there?
Yes, I was actually surprised. This batch overall had slightly better attenuation. That's in spite of the fact that the last one, in addition to all the experimental sugars, had 0.75 pound of white sugar added to the batch to bring up the total percentage of sugar. This one was just the experimental sugars at the same level as the previous one. So the simple sugars were lower, and yet they all finished out between 1.006 and 1.007. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, one got down to 0.005, whereas the previous one, they were all up around 0.008 or 0.009. And some people add sugar later in fermentation. They think that the osmotic pressure of a high-gravity start makes the yeast a little uncomfortable, and by adding it later, you make the yeast push on a little bit further. Incremental feeding is something that's done sort of repeatedly for really high-gravity beers. But I guess even something like this that's only 6.5 or 7%, it can give some advantages.
Huh. And your mash schedule, you kind of went over that quickly, but 15 minutes at 135, which is, if I can use my cheat sheet, around 57 around there Celsius, and then 45 minutes at 145, which would be around 65, somewhere around there, maybe a little less. That's a pretty low saccharification rest. And so we're expecting these to be very fermentable, right?
Exactly. And the idea is that you get rid of most of the most of the big sugars at 145, and you bump up to 163 to finish off. And that should save some dextrins, which shouldn't be sweet. Like maybe if you matched at 150, you'd still have a little bit more residual sweetness. But in this case, I was trying to hold on to some body while still making it very dry.
Well, it's interesting. You've come up with some interesting sugars for us to be playing with, and let's just move on to the first one with agave. And Andy will be our beer server for this evening, or at least he's standing closest to the beers. Andy has the opener in his hand, so.
Well, I'm really looking forward to trying this beer in particular. In that they sell agave in bulk at our co-op, at our Whole Foods co-op, and actually it's called Ozark Natural Foods. It's the real name of the place. At any rate, they sell it in bulk, and it's not very expensive. It's much less expensive than honey. And I had toyed with the idea of doing a beer with some agave, but just hadn't quite got to it. So I'm really excited to have a sip of this.
And
Andy?
And you're Mr. Honey, so if you like this, you might be switching your favorite ingredient here.
Could be.
I've heard of people using agave in combination with honey to do meads as well. So for anyone who doesn't know, agave is derived from a cactus, and it's the base for mezcal. And when mezcal is what's the word? Distilled, it's tequila.
And
which I don't particularly care for.
Didn't Mike Lozano do an agave mead for us out when we were visiting with him? It's been a while back.
It's been a while.
I think I remember that from the show.
Yeah.
It was tasty. By default, it was tasty. Everything we drank out there was tasty. So
yeah, no kidding.
Well, my nose is struggling a little bit tonight, but I pick up some kind of almost like honey notes.
It's very dry.
It's dry, but yeah, there is some body.
I also tried to go a little bit higher in carbonation. I remember a couple of complaints of low carbonation last time for Belgian beers.
Well, you've certainly achieved that. It's nice, and we've got some nice small bubbles, and the head is sticking around for a long time, and the color is a very very pale golden, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I'd say golden.
And what's the ABV on this?
So this went from 1063 to 006. So I'll just pull up the alcohol calculator. 63 to 006 is actually around 7.5%.
Yeah. The reason I asked that's because I get a pretty strong alcohol note. Especially at the end. I mean, it really tastes like I've got a drink. Yeah,
I'm kind of surprised that. This tastes like a really good triple. I'm kind of surprised that I'm not getting more kind of interesting flavors from the agave. It doesn't seem like it's got that much of an impact on the flavor.
Yeah, I think
I believe it was called the light agave. I believe they also sell sort of a dark, more flavorful agave that I couldn't find.
And what would be the percentage of the sugars that we're using here?
Sugars is about, hold on a second while I pull up the recipe for this one, about 10%.
Oh, well.
10% by weight, and so by extract it's about 14%.
Well, I think it's going to be difficult. I'm afraid unless we can get another glass out and taste them like side by side, because it's going to be we're going to get 2 or 3 away from this, and this is so delicate the subtle flavors of the agave. I don't know. Do we have some other glasses?
I can certainly get more glasses. But this is, this is very nice.
It's beautiful beer.
It's really good. Yeah. But I'm like Andy. I don't. And James too. There's not. If you hadn't told me that there was this agave sugar in here, I'm certain I wouldn't be able to figure that out or to taste it. Although you can kind of tell there's something going on, but delicate's the perfect word, Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I smell the kind of subtle funkiness from the Belgian yeast, and that's what sort of dominates the aroma. And then the flavor is nice and it's nice and smooth. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's not a lot of hops in this beer, but it's a nice, smooth drinking beer.
I get a little bit of citrus in the nose. I'm not sure if that's the yeast or that's the agave, but maybe almost a citrus rind, like a grapefruit rind or something like that.
I'll give you that.
A month or so ago, I had a couple of friends over, actually about 10 people, and we tasted the last bottle I had left of all from the first batch and a bottle each from this batch, blind. It was interesting. This batch, they all sort of tasted Belgian, but different, but not necessarily distinct. So we'll see how they've aged.
Well, Andy, you've drank all yours. So
yeah, I don't think there's going to be any option for trying them parallel anymore.
Yeah, so I won't go for another glass. unless you think we need it later on.
Well, we'll just have to rely on our notes.
Yeah. This clearly isn't scientific.
No.
At least on our end. It's very scientific on your end.
No, so I guess to sum up the agave, I'm pleased. It's a delicious beer. But I've got to be honest, I'm a little disappointed that there wasn't some interesting, like, tequila-like, essence in there that sneaks up on you and says, there's something really special about this beer. It is a special beer in that it's really good, but the agave really doesn't add a lot of its own character.
Mm-hmm. And, I was going to say that when I was in my organic food store and I tasted the agave nectar, and it just tasted sweet. It didn't have any particular character going for it, and that actually was why I decided not to mess with it at that time. I thought, well, this isn't really distinctive like maple syrup would be distinctive or honey would be distinctive, and so.
So I guess the answer is if you want to play with agave, you've got to go higher than 10%.
Now, what are the dangers in doing that? If you boost your sugar level up, past 10%, if you get more sugars for the yeast to eat, what's going to happen?
You'd have to tailor the recipe for it. So if I was going up to, say, 20% sugar, I'd probably raise my saccharification rest up to 148, 149, 150. Because with this base beer, it would just get so dry that, it would still be drinkable, but it would be almost probably puckeringly dry. But up to 20%, you're pretty safe by extract. So counting your mash is only what you get out of it, not the weight of what you put into it. If you go much past 20%, you can start, if you aren't very careful, to get off flavors. By the time you hit 25 or 30%, you'll be running low on free amino or free whatever FAN is, free amino nitrogen.
Yeah,
whatever you say, Michael.
Who knows? Which is actually the reason the brewers in America used to use corn, was to actually dilute the FAN. Because 6-row is so high that you'd have to get a low nitrogen adjunct like corn or rice to cut that.
Did you talk about fermentation temperature on these?
No, I didn't. This one was fermented at sort of early fall DC room temperature, which is sort of high 60s, low 70s. I intentionally didn't want to go too high because I didn't want to obscure the fermented sugar character.
That's about 20 degrees Celsius, by the way.
Thank you.
just thinking of you guys out there in the international audience. Okay, well, let's. Why don't we rinse and we'll go on to the next one. Now, the next sugar that we're coming to is called a grr or a jaggery. Is that right?
That's about as well as I can pronounce them too.
Now, this sugar's from India, but I don't know a thing about it. Can you tell me a little bit about what this stuff is like and how it's made?
Sure. This is originally traditionally made from sugar palms, and it's sort of sold in. It's a very moist sugar, almost like sort of like a cake, almost like a wetter version of the Mexican sugar, Pinoncillo, whatever it is. And it's sort of sold in these large, bell-shaped, formed mold, big blocks. And nowadays, some of it's made with still the traditional method with the sugar palm, and some of it is made with cane sugar treated in a similar way. And it can often be difficult. Often the packaging isn't clear on which is which. I'm pretty sure the one we're drinking now is from a sugar palm. I'm not positive, though.
And does that give it a different flavor? I mean, the sugar that's made from the sugar palm would taste different than that which was made from cane sugar?
Definitely, particularly since some of the impurities are still in there. So it would be similar to the previous one with the agave. I mean, it's just another plant that makes sugar along with its own sort of flavorful byproducts.
Now, just on the nose of this one, this is more, it's stronger. It's got, to me, it's got a stronger kind of, I don't know if it's sugary character, but it is definitely a stronger smelling beer than the first one.
Gore can be very aromatic. It's sort of prized for having a big aroma, particularly compared to the agave, which is pretty mild. I'd say the color is pretty similar, and maybe a hair lighter.
Lighter?
But still sort of that. Let's see, I still have some of the previous on left. I'll hold them up.
Oh, I was going to say it was half a shade darker, but...
Yeah? You know, holding them next to each other, they actually look about the same. So.
Oh, well, there you go.
Or at least very close.
Yeah, well, you know, I think I have a little of the dregs in mine, so it's hazed up a little more in mine, whereas James's is a little clearer. And
I kind of remember that. I think that the agave was a little spicier than this. Does anybody?
I don't know. I had a little trouble picking up much really in there at all. So to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
This is nice though. I like it gives it kind of a rich flavor. Kind of reminds me a little bit of some kind of old honey or something that's been a little richer than honey, maybe.
Not as heavy as a molasses, but there is kind of a brown sugar, more of a brown sugary kind of smell and taste, I think.
And it has a delicious mouthfeel. This is this is a luxurious feeling beer in your mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, good job, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that's what that sort of second saccharification rest gives you. Even though this is a 1.006 beer, it still has a little bit of that fullness.
Now, at the end of this one, I don't know if it's a little bitterness, but there's a little bit of a bite at the very end on this one, and I don't know if it's because of alcohol or is anybody else getting anything like that? Whereas the agave was smooth all the way to the end, this one has just a little bit of a at the end.
I don't really get that so much. I actually felt like the agave beer, to my mouth, had more of an alcohol bite. Maybe this one's kind of bigger and richer and perhaps more complex. And it seems like it has more layers going on than the agave beer.
I'm picking up just half a hint of maybe banana.
Bananas. I was going to say that. I was saying that just right at the finish, when I leave it at the back of my palate, I get that just hint of, which is a classic Belgian nuance.
Yeah. You know what it smells like? It smells like my Belgian brunette that you like so much, Steve. To me, I think this smells very close.
Yummy.
And that was made with the Belgian candy syrup that we tasted in one of the earlier batches.
Yeah.
From last time.
And that's, I believe, probably the next direction I'm going with these is the same company has just released another 4 or 5 products.
Really?
A new, I think it's called D2 Dark Syrup, which is, I guess, meant to mimic a different sort of brewery style, and an amber syrup, and a clear syrup, which I haven't tried yet, but I am a little suspect of. just being a clear syrup, it I don't know.
It's Cairo.
Yeah.
You can make an excellent pecan pie.
A shoe fly pie out of that.
Well, I'm slower than you guys.
You'd probably make an excellent pie out of this stuff.
Yeah.
The stuff that's coming next.
Well, while I'm finishing this one up, and this one's very nice as well, I've got to say I like the agave better, I think. Just it's a little more smooth and, easy drinking. I don't know. What about you guys?
Nope.
It's a toss-up. I liked both beers quite a bit. I actually think I like this one better only because, and I'm splitting hairs here, but the hotness, the alcohol hotness to me in the first beer was quite pronounced to me, and I didn't care for that as much. Wow. This one seemed like it was smoother in that respect.
That's interesting how different people can drink the same beers and come up with completely different impressions.
Yeah. Yeah. I just thought the first one was a little more plain, and this one had a little more something going for it. It had a little more character.
Well, there you go. That's valid. Now let's move on with Lyle's Golden Syrup. Now, what is Lyle's Golden Syrup?
Lyle's Golden Syrup is actually an English invert syrup, which means that the sucrose molecules are broken apart by an acid into glucose and fructose, and then they're actually neutralized with a base to stop that reaction, so there's still some of the original sucrose. This is normally used in baking sort of the same way that Karo is, because it won't crystallize. Unless you have a lot of one sort of sugar molecule, they won't crystallize with each other. The glucose and the sucrose won't make crystals. They don't get along, I guess.
So this is a golden syrup, as the name would imply.
Yep, and it's slightly caramelized, so maybe something similar to amber candy rocks, that sort of level of a little bit of color, but not that much.
Mm-hmm. When I was a child and I was growing up in England for a little while, we would get some of these things called treacle tarts, and I think the Lyle's was used to make the treacle tarts. They have different levels of darkness in these syrups, and I think a lot of times treacle is a little darker version of this.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
Cool. All right. Didn't you date a treacle tart in high school, Steve?
She was actually a Kappa Delta treacle tart.
Careful. It should. It has no resemblance to any real sorority.
No, it's a purely made up fictional sorority.
How many sorority girls listen to this podcast, do you think?
A lot.
68 at least.
Thank you, sir.
The Lyle's Golden Syrup.
Now, this is maybe a little, that was
very similar in color.
The same.
The first thing I noticed is much worse head retention. Are you guys seeing that?
Worse head retention?
Well, Andy poured his with a little more vigor than mine, I think.
Yeah. It may just be the glass, but the other ones, the head sort of stuck around for a bit. This one's almost flat on top.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's nowhere near as carbonated.
That actually just may be it then.
Ooh, that smells great.
Yeah.
Wow, that has a good bit more body to it.
Ooh, and it may be because you didn't pour mine with very much vigor, but when I drank it, it really sprang to life.
Yeah, had more carbonation.
Kind of like a Pepsi,
Yeah.
I'm not getting a ton of aromatics. I'm not picking up a bunch of stuff on the nose.
No, it's got that kind of Belgian triple smell.
Actually, so far, I'm kind of surprised at just how similar these beers are. I expected there to be a greater difference in them, and there's not, really.
Now this one,
so far, I think you could have entered any of these in a Belgian competition and not gotten dinged for inappropriate ingredients or that sort of thing. They all sort of blend into the beer pretty seamlessly.
Now this one, maybe because it's the carbonation, maybe I'll knock some of the carbonation out, but it seems to have a lighter body than the others. To me.
I actually would have said heavier.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's very viscous. To me it's thicker and more syrupy. And when I say syrupy, I don't mean like gloppy syrup. I mean just thick and heavy in the mouth.
I'm going to degas this and see what happens.
I think it's smoother at the very end. There's a smoothness to it. Maybe that's the viscosity.
Yeah.
Boy,
it's very nice. I like the luxuriousness of that mouthfeel.
It's like drinking velvet.
I'm really swirling this up to knock some of the carbonation out, and it really makes the glass smell really good. There's
wow.
There's just that Belgian sugary, funk, not Brettanomyces funk, but
right.
That just kind of Belgian triple smell, only in spades.
This is another one that I don't think the sugar really provided too much of its own character. I mean, it certainly I think some of that sweetness, and maybe I get a little hint of sort of a mild caramelly, sugary, almost like a candy sugar. I mean, it's just sort of there, but it's not that strong or upfront.
Yeah.
So when you go to the grocery store now, Mike, do you go up and down the aisles looking for fermentables?
It's a standard practice anytime I go to a new store or I'm in a new part of the country that I haven't been to recently.
When when Steve and I were visiting with the brewer at Wincoop in Denver, he gave us a triple that he had gone to a Mexican grocery store.
That's right.
And emptied the bin of this certain kind of candy that they had there.
It's kind of a hard burnt sugar kind of thing.
And it was delicious.
Yeah.
It was just a wonderful, wonderful thing. So visit the candy aisle at your local ethnic grocery store and come up with new fermentables for your Belgians.
Well, I'm getting happier by the moment. A third of a beer at a time.
Yeah, that was good. Now,
that was very good.
Yeah, after I knocked the gas out of it.
That's what she said.
We are getting happier.
Yeah.
Now, after I knocked the carbonation out of it, I did get the heavier mouthfeel. So I can see where you guys were coming from there. This was great stuff. Now we'll take a second while Andy's rinsing glasses to plug your blog. And we'll have a link to your blog in the description of this episode. But you've been doing some interesting stuff, including you've been playing with the Vinnie Cilorzo oak chips
that you so graciously sent me.
That I sent you. And how's that going? What were your results with those?
Well, it's I think way too early to sort of proclaim any results. I certainly got sort of a good starter going with them. And I inoculated a clone of Temptation I did with my friend Seth. Just sort of very basic Belgian pale, Pilsner, and some unmalted wheat. And then tossed that in the secondary. And actually a little in the primary, too, just for fun. And then I did a clone of one of the Lost Abbey, which is sort of the Belgian outgrowth of Pizza Port Brewing. They did a blended beer that had part of a Saison, part of a Bier de Garde, and part of their light lager called Cable Car for the Toronado Beer Bar's 20th anniversary. So I have sort of a version of that going with the chips. And I think I've managed to pass out chips that I re-inoculated with it, and chunks of that started 9 or 10 other people. Anytime I mention it, I get 6 or 7, emails. Hey, can you send some my way? Or, I'll give you a 6-pack of whatever I make. So I'm planning to keep this blend going as long as possible.
So can you see any difference? Or can you detect any Russian Riverishness in those brews?
It's so hard to tell at this point. I don't think any of them are going to be bottled for another couple months, and really it probably needs a year to do its magic. But at this point, I mean, even the Temptation clone after 2 months in secondary is already really tasting nice. I mean, just sort of a really smooth, mild funkiness. It hasn't gotten much sourness yet, but I imagine that'll pick up in time.
Cool. And I've got more interesting bug questions for you in a little bit, but let's move on to our next one, which is the date sugar, the granulated date sugar. So tell us about that.
Oh, very carbonated. Watch out.
Oh, yeah. Sink. We have a sink. And paper towels.
I guess I was making up for the last one.
Wow. No harm, no foul.
Sorry.
That's all right.
It's all right.
There are paper towels back there, Steve, if you want to grab those.
I told you not to put that Mentos in there.
So it's good that I cleared my
the date sugar.
It's good that I cleaned the counter off. So yeah, there's a bit of carbonation with that one.
And I didn't get them poured very well either.
Well, we can redistribute.
I got ripped off.
Well, we can redistribute. Yeah, we can. You can suck on the paper towels there.
Oops. Wow.
Oh well.
So that developed apparently over the last 2 months since I opened a bottle of this last.
From now on, you're opening first, Mike.
I did. I tried to warn you.
It was just a split second. You said, "Oh," and then Mount Pinatubo here. Okay, we'll collect our
I think we're good.
nerves here.
I think we're good.
You don't want to split those up a little bit. You got ripped off a little bit. That's for our fallen homies or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, now look what I've done.
Now
That's what you get.
I knew I shouldn't have endorsed that. I'm fine.
Oh. Ooh, now this is
very different.
This is a lot more Belgian-y.
Oh my!
I think part of that might just be that I don't know about you guys, but my beer got a lot of yeast kicked up into it.
Yeah, it sure did.
Yeah,
because I started pouring very aggressively. When
yeah, that's like a snow globe.
Well, that's good. However,
that smells way different.
Yeah.
So what? We never got to it, but what date sugar is essentially is just they grind up sugar dates, they dry them, and that's it. So it's just ground up dates, which are very high in sugar, but would also have probably a lot more character to them than sort of the at least partially refined sugars.
Oh wow!
This is a very nice beer.
Yeah, that's good.
I like this a lot.
And the only thing I'm unsure about on this one, a couple recipes I saw that use this added it to the mash because it actually does contain some starch. Which may be the cause of this sort of secondary fermentation. I don't know if something got in there, just the yeast took their time with the more complex sugars. But many people suggest adding it to the mash to get those, what little starch there is, converted.
Huh?
Yeah, but you would think also it would blow off a lot of the aromatics, because, that's all going to go through the boil, so.
Oh, yeah.
There's always, sort of a trade-off, but if it avoids a whole, case of these massively overcarbonated things.
Now with this beer, I believe that I can taste dates. I mean, this tastes reminiscent of eating a date to me, where the other beers didn't. They were just different.
And I'm smelling a little bit of sourness with this one.
That's my shirt. Sorry.
No, I think I
agree. I think there is something a little bit funky going on. I'm not sure if that is the yeast or that's just what happens when a bunch of dates get sort of left at the bottom of a bottle of beer for a couple of months.
I mean, it's a good sourness.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm not complaining. It's completely appropriate for the style. Well, that's become my favorite for the night. That's
my favorite.
Now, I guess, can you get date sugar anywhere?
Yeah, I believe I picked up a bag of this at the local Whole Foods. So I mean, it's not that hard to come by. I'm not sure if Arkansas has,
We don't have one of those.
But I imagine, it's sort of a very natural alternative to sweetening, so I would imagine any sort of health food store or something like that, natural grocery, you'd have a shot at finding it. I'm also sure it's available. Everything's available online these days. So.
And this is pretty dry compared to at least the last one.
It is dry, but it has that nice kind of fruity character, so it's nice balance.
This was actually the driest. This was the one that got down to 0.005, so it is the driest.
Oh.
In terms of numbers, but we've all seen that may not always be accurate in the way something tastes.
Yeah, it still has a lot of body, and it's delicious.
Yeah. I just got to think that there's something. I just smell something in there that's a little more funky than the others. You know what I'm saying? I'm just wondering.
See, my personal guess would be that that's just the yeast that's in the glass.
Well,
but knowing me, there is a very high probability something found its way in there over the last 5 months.
Did you walk past the kombucha culture on your way to the bottling bucket, or?
It's possible, but I guess the fact that both of ours got that way would lead me to believe that. It's not a bottle infection, so it could have gotten in that week or so that was with the other sugar, but all the things were bottled on the same day and stored right next to each other and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's not very infected. It's very subtle if anything.
Yeah. But it's.
I don't know if could it be some acidity from the date sugar that just gives us that little bit of character. I don't know.
Could be. It's just it's a little more interesting than the rest, and it's weird in a good way. Well, while Andy's rinsing, I'll give you an update on my first attempt at a purposefully soured beer.
The porter?
My sour smoked porter that I brewed last year with the Rosalaire blend. It has been. I followed Vinnie Chilurzo's advice and put it in a plastic bucket for a month as a secondary, and then after that put it in the glass carboy. And I was kind of disappointed because there wasn't a pellicle on top, and I thought, oh no, I moved it too quickly to the glass. But now I looked the other day, and there's this kind of white powdery layer. Powdery looking layer on the top of the beer. Am I headed in the right direction there?
Powdery is normally a sign of Brettanomyces. It makes sometimes it'll get powdery and then it'll almost get craggy like an old sci-fi brain. And that's normally then when something like PDO takes over, it'll start getting more sort of slimy and thicker and sort of that fuller look.
I'll let you go.
Certainly sound like you're going in the right direction.
Yeah, it's and Andy and I tasted it. When did we taste it?
Gosh, that was
weeks ago.
When we did the Party Guile episode.
That's right. If you look back in the archives to the Party Guile brew session, you'll see when we tasted it. But it was coming along nicely, I thought. It wasn't overly sour at that point.
Yeah, it was just starting to sour, it seemed like.
But it was nice, and the smokiness was interesting, and I could tell that it was headed in the right direction. So, usually when you see weird white powdery stuff on the top of your beer, you panic. But in this case, I'm encouraged.
My, how you've grown.
Oh, well, our last in this series of bottles on this particular experiment is another attempt at a homemade candy sugar.
Yes, and this was a fun one. I made 4 or 5 different attempts at this, trying to get close. I talked to Brian Mercer, the importer for dark candy syrup. It was very nice, and he, people said you've got to add acid to invert it. And he said, the syrup we make is 100% sucrose refined, table sugar. It's just the way they cook it. It's the way they monitor the temperature. It's the way they monitor the moisture content. And so that's what I did. I I took about a pound of sugar with a couple of cups of water, and I started cooking it. And when it got to 285 degrees, I added a tablespoon of water to dilute it back down and cool it. I let it up to 285 again, another tablespoon of water, and I kept that up for about 3 hours. I was left with sort of a dark, burnt, auburn, brown sort of color syrup. And unlike the last attempt, which was K-Row and diammonium phosphate, this one is actually completely fermentable.
Huh.
Although, unlike the other one, it is nowhere near as dark as dark candy syrup, as you'll see momentarily.
So how long was the process, the cooking process?
About 3 hours.
Huh.
That's dedication.
And
Yeah.
I have a thermometer with a timer with a limit set alarm, and so I could just set to 285, walk away, it would beep, I'd go back over there.
And how
once
big,
every 5 minutes or so.
How much sugar did you get out of? How much end product did you get out?
I got about a pint, I think. But you could. That's part of it. Is once you get your technique down, you could do it for any amount, and just scale up the amount of sugar, the amount of water at each edition, and make it in 5-gallon batches if you wanted to. I'm still looking for a way to get it darker. So the idea is that by boiling with some water, some of the sugar will invert, so split, and then fructose will caramelize at a much lower temperature, around 220. And so it will caramelize and darken, but it will leave the glucose and the sucrose unaffected and still completely fermentable as long as you don't cross over 300 degrees. And so my next step is to go past the glucose caramelization temp of 300. Sucrose doesn't go until about 340. So I figure for the next one I'll get up to 330 or so, and then do that, hoping to get it much darker than this.
Now we're getting back into, this is more of a brighter smelling beer. I haven't tasted it yet, but that was my impression. I smelled it and I was like, this is like a little ray of sunshine, compared to the last one, which was kind of had darker aroma notes, if that makes sense.
I'm definitely not picking up as much of the kind of Belgian funkiness as the first one. But then I think all our beers are fairly clear. We didn't kick up a lot of, I might have got mine. Sorry.
That's okay. I've got the fun.
This one, to me, seems to be the least complex of the beers that we've had tonight.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, compared to the last one, this one just tastes so mild. I'm not sure if that's because of the previous one or because it's very mild.
Right.
Yeah, this one is very clean tasting. There is it's just bright and it's delicious. I mean, it's really good, but there's just not a whole lot of character in there, I guess is what I'm saying.
It's definitely doesn't have the nice luscious mouthfeel that the last one did and the one before that did. I think those two had a much nicer mouthfeel. This is a little thin.
Yeah.
This is the closest one to what I would call a lawnmower beer.
Huh, yeah.
It's summertime. I've just mowed the yard.
Yeah, this would be perfect.
This is probably pretty strong for a lawnmower beer.
Well, yeah, but
I can taste the alcohol on the end. It's kind of
yeah.
Well, it's after you finish the lawn.
There you go.
Well, yes. Operate power tools.
I think this one tastes the least bitter as well. I mean, it really is very mild, sort of all around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of refreshing and light and crisp, and not a whole lot of Belgian character. But you can still tell it's a Belgian.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very nice, but it's and to be fair, coming off of that previous one,
right.
But good, still good. Time well spent, I think, with the homemade sugar.
I definitely think I need to get darker in, because this is maybe a shade darker than some of the other ones, but not by much.
Well, it's delicious.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very triple-esque. It's kind of got that kind of alcohol thing at the end that I think about with triples.
Yeah, and one of the judgments that I make about homebrew when I taste them is, if I were to pay money for this in a bar or a store, would I be happy or would I be disappointed? And I don't think any of these beers that I've had would disappoint me. I think all of these are delicious, commercial quality brews that I would be, happy to pay for. If I had
except
the
exploding date sugar.
Well, but even that,
about that one.
Actually, it was one of the. It may have been the best tasting beer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think I just think need to figure out why it had that extra residual sugar. Leave it a little longer, maybe in the secondary. But it was delicious.
Yeah.
Had the nice flavor going for it.
Yeah, I was just judging off the taste. And not the performance.
if it had been poured in a glass for you out of your view.
There you go. Yeah,
for sure.
There you go. Well, these are really, really good.
Or even on tap. Ooh.
Oh man.
See, this is why I don't keg.
Yeah.
This is why you should keg. This is why Michael should keg.
And send us one.
I actually really enjoy bottling. I enjoy being able to hold on to the last bottle of a beer for an extra, 6 months or something like that.
You and James.
Like Scrooge McDuff. In my basement with all my bottles. Although I need to replenish my supply.
Well, I can honestly say that all of these beers were delightful tonight. There wasn't a dog in the bunch. Oh, we still have the hoppy triple.
Yeah, well, speaking of the dogs in the bunch, we have a stray. We have something different. We have what you're calling a hoppy triple. Now, tell us, this is different from the Belgian yeast or Belgian. The Belgian sugar experiment. This is a beer that when you wrote your email and inventorying what was going to be in the box, I think you said that you wanted to kind of prove a point with this beer.
So the last time it was 2 times ago when we did this. The one with the cane sugar just tasted awful. It was thin. It was cidery. It was because of really hot fermentation, hot, uncontrolled, awful fermentation. And this one is 20% cane sugar, and I just wanted to sort of prove that you can add cane sugar. Many Belgian breweries do it, and not negatively impact your beer. So this is a pretty standard triple, Belgian Pils and Belgian Pale, a whole bunch of cane sugar, and then the twist is an American hop schedule. Not really bitter. It's only about 36 or 37 IBUs, about the same as West Malt Triple. But big Amarillo, Cascade.
Now you're singing my song.
Sterling, Crystal. So it was Cascade, Sterling, Crystal in the boil, and then Amarillo dry hop. And this one's about 9.5%.
Now say that last part again.
This is about 9.5%.
Oh
my.
So it's a real triple, unlike the sort of tastes like a triples, with the.
Well, so cane sugar gets a bad rap, mostly because people in the old days of home brewing, when they just get a kit and kilo brew, and they wanted to boost the alcohol, just put just as much sugar as they wanted to in there, and then it tasted like apple cider, and it was really hot and nasty, and they drank it for the effect, and then they got a headache the next day, and home brewing was bad.
Was no good.
Exactly. So this is to prove that table sugar is not evil.
If you treat it right, and you don't add way too much, and you pitch the right amount of yeast, and you give it a little yeast nutrient if it needs it, and that sort of thing.
Well, cheers, gentlemen.
And I should say this is sort of inspired by, there's a little new, amazingly great brewery called Captain Lawrence in New York, and they do a beer called Extra Gold. It's sort of they have a beer called Liquid Gold that's sort of their standard Belgian. This is their big hoppy triple. And I had that, and I was really just blown away by how good it was. And I've tried them side by side, and theirs is still a lot better than mine. But this is an homage, at least.
Oh, this smells like juicy fruit gum. With a little
this
bit
actually,
of, go ahead.
I was going to say this was pitched onto the yeast cake from the Belgian sugar experiment, so it's the same yeast.
Oh man,
this is easily the most aromatic beer we've had tonight.
Oh yeah.
Oh well, the hops together with the Belgian yeast smell, and then the little bit of sugar in there. I would swear there's. I could swear there's cherries in here in the smell. I haven't tasted it yet, but
I almost get this kind of like sweet pickle kind of sweetness, like spice. It might be a spicy sweetness or something, but.
Oh wow! Oh my!
It's wonderful.
And nobody's actually had us taste yet.
No. This is a beer that you could smell. You know, the smell is
worth the price of admission.
Oh man, especially since it was free. Thank you.
You know, this one has gotten better for a little while. This one I thought was way too hoppy. This was for the end of October, and for a while the Amarillo dry hops were really covering up the American yeast. And I think now it's dried out a little bit in the bottle, and I think it's the hops have mellowed enough that it's good balance.
Apricots.
Yeah, there you go. Not juicy. I take back my juicy fruit. I knew it was some kind of fruit that I recognized, but.
Oh, and I left out. I had a quarter pound of wheat malt in there, but other than that.
Oh, that's why we didn't pick it out.
Oh man.
Wow.
That's very apricot-y.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing.
So, and any cider or any
no,
hot thin,
tremendous beer.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
Is this recipe on your site somewhere?
You know, it isn't yet, but I'll certainly stick it up there before
before this is posted, because I would advise that you go to Michael's site and pick up this recipe. And try to find the hops. I know that may be the tricky part right now.
But this is about a 4-gallon batch, and it's less than 4 ounces of hops. So I mean, it's not that extreme because it's not very bitter.
No, it's not bitter, but the nose is just wonderful, and you really do get that citrus Amarillo nose out of it.
Wow.
I'm really enjoying sort of the combination I've done on a couple of beers of the American versions of the noble hops. So like Mount Hood or Sterling or Crystal or any of those, and then the real American, the C hops, the Cascades, the Centennials, Amarillo, Simcoe. I think that combination is really delicious and is something that a lot of people don't try.
Oh, now this is a beer that would not fit into any category in a BJCP.
Peter Buchart likes this beer very much.
Yes, you should send one to Peter.
It's 10 minutes of art.
The beer. The person I think in a fellow podcast competitor, Jamil, often says that often people claim that their beers aren't just style like the black pilsner, and he says, oh, it's just a Schwarz beer, that most beers fall into, or all beers fall into a category. This is one that I just don't think there's any category you can pigeonhole it into. I mean,
no.
You could try double IPA, but it's nowhere near bitter enough. You could try triple, but it's way too hoppy. Maybe Belgian specialty is about as close as you can get.
Belgian specialty would probably have to be the place where you drop it, because it has that Belgian yeast character, so that throws it that way. But then you add the American hops, and I've heard that there's some Belgian brewers doing some of this with American hops, and but I haven't had the luck of trying any yet. So.
Yeah, the Hoblen Schoof is the from Le Schoof is sort of I guess the beer that really got this sort of idea rolling. It's sort of a big Belgian that they dry hopped with Amarillo, and then Captain Lawrence did theirs, and Russian River did a special batch of Damnation, batch 23, which is actually where the oak chips for the funky oak chips came from.
Wow!
It was oak aged. And then with American hops and bigger than the normal Damnation. And they took those out and funkified them and dried them and so on and so forth.
Wow.
Well, this is this is an amazing beer, and I can't thank you enough for including us on your trek through the through your experiments. This is wonderful stuff, and I hope that the listeners will take away from this the hard information of what fermentables to try. Well, but I hope that this will inspire people to go out and break some rules and try some things that some people may poo-poo, but you can come out with some amazing stuff just from crossing lines and doing stuff that you're not supposed to do.
And picking random stuff up from the supermarket and tossing in your beer.
Yeah. And just having the passion to experiment and to just, stretch the bounds of what we're doing. And, yeah, it's terrific. And you've done a great job.
Excellent. Well, now here at the end, since I don't have a script in front of me, I have to remember to tell people to go to our website for more of our stuff, our archives of our audio and video podcasts and all our DVDs and such as that. I want to thank Michael Tonsmeire, the Mad Fermentationist, for providing all the beers tonight.
Mike, these were great.
And Steve Wilkes, my partner in crime. And Andy Sparks, my other partner in crime from thehomebrewery.com.
It's always great to be here, buddy.
And we'll talk to you next time. Happy brewing, everybody.